I'm here to tell you a story today, and it's a story about seeds and soil. It's a story about human rights and photographers. It's a story about art and abuse. It's a story about a boy crying outside a refugee camp called Kakuma in northwest Kenya. But most of all, it's a story about how all those things came together. This is a story about connection. It all begins with a moment. One moment that's like a tiny seed. And when that tiny seed falls down into soil that's ready, that's when a moment can become an idea and transform a life. It might begin with something you see. It might begin with seeing an incredible sunrise that captures your imagination and helps you to start an amazing musical. It might be something that you hear, maybe a quote or just a moment from a loved one that says, "I love you," and it gives you the courage and energy that you need to be able to step forward and into your destiny. It could be something you feel. That moment where you're in deep despair and you just get that feeling that, I've got to do something to move out of this. Whatever that moment is, that seed falls down deep inside you, and it could seem insignificant. It could seem like something that is so tiny that you barely notice it. But when you have a seed that falls into soil that's been prepared, soil that's been fertilized, soil where the weeds have been torn away, and the soil that's ready, that's when something magnificent can take place. Now, this seed for me was a photograph by a man named Zariah of a little boy, simply titled, "A Boy Crying Outside the Refugee Camp, Kakuma." This moment transformed me. I didn't realize at the time that it did, but looking back now, this was a turning point for me. But to understand where I came from, we need to go back a few steps. I grew up in an incredible family filled with love and generosity and fun. We were completely surrounded by people that wanted to make the world a better place. We were taught from a very young age that when we earn money, part of that is given to us so that we can give, so that we can serve and help other people. It was a wonderful thing to be taught at a young age. The other thing that I was taught at a young age is we should make stuff. From educational television that told us that we should get toilet rolls and clag and mish them together to make cars. Yeah, we all have heaps of those in our things I need to keep for when I'm a grown-up box. Yeah. To the beautiful paintings that you would do in primary school. I grew up in a family that really valued the creative arts. The giant X you'll find out the front, my amazing dad made that X because I said, "Oh yeah, I'll totally volunteer to make an X for you, Vishal." "Hey Dad, do you reckon you could make an X?" That's the kind of family I came from. Pretty phenomenal. They also told me to really value education and value the story behind where things come from. They taught me by buying me the Golden Book Encyclopedia as a child. I used to love going through and finding out why and how things happen. Again, educational television, learning that a lot of little nuts make a jar of peanut butter. It was an incredible childhood. We were out in the country, we got to experience things, feel them, put our fingers and toes in the mud and really, really experience. We got to learn a lot about community. That when you're doing something that makes a difference in people's lives, it makes even more of a difference if you connect with people. I'm sure that you've had this experience in your lives. When I was growing up, there was a thing called the 40-hour famine, where you would not eat for 40 hours and you would get people to sponsor you and use that sponsorship money to go to help children in the developing world who are dying of starvation. Now, even as a child, I was given this opportunity. Don't worry, activists in the crowd, we didn't do 40 hours, we did 8. And we were allowed to have barley sugar, which is, I'm pretty sure, the reason why barley sugar still is something that's sold throughout the 80s and 90s. I think I probably went through 3 or 4 bags, more sugar than I would have consumed in that 8-hour period. But we were taught to do it in community. We did that as a school. All the students would do the 8-hour famine and start raising money and support for children in the developing world. And we would use that time to get to know one another. We'd do activities during the day and learn about where the money is going. It's so important to understand the education behind it because that means you know why it is you're doing what you're doing. We also did it in community. We were part of an amazing group of people that gathered together the elder people in the community and the children. And as the adults would do the 40-hour famine, we would do the 8. And at the end, we would come together and have what I swear is the most delicious soup in the world. Probably not, but after you've not eaten for a whole 8 hours, oh my goodness. Plain bread with butter, my goodness, amazing stuff. So I learnt that art is important. Making things that are beautiful are important, but those things need to be there for a reason. I learnt that those things for a reason need to be connected to people. But then something really painful and difficult happened. All those moments of connection where it was sowing amazing seeds of education, art, activism, community, there was a great disconnect that happened for me. Two people who my family loved and trusted and cared about were in such a place of brokenness themselves that they passed that brokenness on to me and others. It was a moment where different seeds were sown. Seeds that didn't create beautiful flowers, seeds that created pain. And like the seeds that create something beautiful, when they first come up, even the most experienced gardener, when you see the seedlings, you don't actually know what they are until they come into fruit. These seeds grew something altogether different. These seeds began to grow gnarly, painful things that taught me that I should surround myself with thorns. What I thought were thorns that were to protect me, thorns that would keep me at a distance from connection, because connection was painful. Connection was scary. Connection was something that would hurt me and cause me pain. So of course, I learned to grow these other plants. I learned to grow these long thorns, and as I noticed, something inside changed, much like something inside changed when I met this gorgeous crying boy. Something inside me changed at the moment, and when I went to connect with people, what they would experience of me is underneath they'd see these beautiful flowers and they would come and be drawn to me, but on the outside I would push them away because of these painful thorns that I thought were there to keep me safe. But they were really there keeping me at a distance from other people. We all have thorns in our lives, don't we? We all have those moments where tiny seeds were planted. It might have been in our childhood, in our 20s, even into our adult years. We have those seeds that are planted, and if we're not taught how to recognize the difference between a flower or a weed, those things can grow up inside of us and cause us to not be able to connect. And that's something truly and deeply painful. But that's not all the bad news. Don't worry, it gets better. I moved over and was introduced to some incredible people that taught me tools. Who knows that when you're gardening, you need some pretty amazing tools to have an amazing garden? Have you seen those sculptures where they do the trees into the shapes? Incredible. That doesn't happen by accident. It's by careful mentoring. They know what needs to go in the soil. They know how much water. They know what leaves to cut off where and at what season. I was surrounded by these incredible people who along the way taught me how to recognize the difference between weeds and a beautiful garden. They began to teach me how to gently take out those weeds, those thorns that have stopped me from connecting. And that was painful. They began to teach me how to recognize the parts of me that weren't being seen anymore because of these thorns and vines that had been choking me and holding me down and back and in pain and scared and lost and alone. They taught me how to recognize. They also gave me tools that would teach me how to look after those tiny seeds that had been planted as a child. And they're the exciting tools. I began to learn more about art. I began to learn about how to do amazing portraits. I began how to understand how to see the human eye and make it do that thing that the Mona Lisa does where you can go like this or like this, but she's still staring at you. I began to learn some amazing things about how to play with colour, how to play with light and darkness, how to play with something so that it moves you emotionally even as you're looking at it with your eyes. that you can almost hear the art speaking to you. I had incredible mentors that taught me all these wonderful things. One of them, the most phenomenal mentor of all, YouTube.com. Cheapest education ever. I also learned a little bit about what was the story behind these amazing pictures. I learned about some incredible documents, one particularly the 1951 Refugee Convention. It's a document set up by the United Nations that was there designed to protect refugees around the world. I learned about the Convention on Human Rights. I learned about the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and these pieces of information suddenly came to life for me. I began to just pour through information and want to know more about how does the world work? How do governments work? How does aid and development work? What's the theory behind it? What does work? What doesn't work? What's the information that people set up 10, 20, 50, 100 years ago that was designed to actually help and protect and serve people? What was that information? And again, the internet has all this information for free. So I started searching, I started learning, I put down my Golden Book Encyclopedia and started with the Wikipedia, magical, and found all this incredible information. And I started seeing connections between this beautiful little boy and the text that was designed to protect him. So in the same way that my incredible family brought me to a group of people so that I could experience activism and aid with a group, I began to see that perhaps I could combine art with information. And I'm not sure if you can see very closely, but this image behind you is the same picture by that incredible photographer, Zariah. Please check out his work. He's unbelievable. But if you look closely, it's all made out of text, and that text is the 1951 Refugee Convention. Yeah, have a moment. So I found a way to build connection. I found a way to put the things that I was passionate about together. And I didn't realize it, but I started seeing this seed of this incredible photo that my friend Zariah had put on the internet of this little boy, and it began to communicate so much more than his face. It began to communicate his story. And more than his story, it began to communicate the possibility for what we now here could do to support, to make a difference, to change. And so this is the first of many portraits I've done. Some on the Convention of the Rights of the Child, helping to raise awareness for children that have been trafficked around the world, children that don't have access to education. And I use the text that's designed to protect them as the background to the images. As we remove the text, the child disappears. And so what I thought was this incredible seed dropping down deep into this amazing soil that had been planted by my phenomenal family, that my mentors had come along and helped me to weed, to learn, to fertilize, to look after and care for. This soil was so ready. And as I opened up that page and first saw this beautiful image and made the connection between the image and the text, and then sat for 40 hours and made that image come to life, I realized that inside what that connection was, what I thought was the connection that was going to lead me towards art activism. Doesn't that sound fancy? I thought it would turn me to art activism. I'd be the Banksy of human rights. Yeah, life-changing stuff, huh? I thought that was where my path would take me, but as I noticed this seed growing up, getting bigger, what I thought would turn into a, really, let's be honest, Banksy of activism, it was going to be a gorgeous bush of daisies. That's the first image that comes up in your mind, isn't it? Yeah, just nod, go with it. But what I thought would come into this thing that would be beautiful and floral actually grew into something far more significant. This seed that was planted actually was a seed for a tree. And this is something that happens in all of our lives. Something that might happen that might seem just insignificant. Just a moment where someone says something, we see something, we taste or we feel something, and it really makes a difference in our lives. What we think might take us on a certain path often will grow into something beyond our wildest imagination. And what this has grown into for me is this incredible tree. And this tree that I thought would just bring together art and spreading a message about aid has brought in for me the opportunity to bring people and connect them, helping people see the difference that they can make in the world, find the thing that they are excited about and give them an opportunity to be able to share that with the world. I've had the incredible opportunity of working with a number of charities, a number of startups, a number of incredible people all over the world that really want to make a difference. And so now, my greatest joy is connecting people with their passion and letting that transform the world. So let this be your seed. Let this be that tiny thing that even though maybe at the moment you have weeds, maybe your soil is a bit rough around the edges, I trust though that this is your seed that goes down deep and has a significant impact in your life. Choose for it to be that. And then surround yourself with amazing people that will teach you how to tend, teach you how to pull away the things that you think are protecting you, but they're actually keeping you from the life you could be living. And hopefully all of us will create some amazing trees. Thank you.